right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Let me introduce myself if we are not already familiar. My name is Morgan Goodwin, and I work as the Student Engagement Coordinator here at Campus Compact, and I've been working with um, our amazing student leaders to support them in their mini grant projects and completing their community impact projects and creating change within their communities. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. And we're going to go ahead and get started and letting these students share the impacts that they've had, the lessons that they've learned. All right, and hopefully everyone can see my screen here. All right, let's go ahead and jump in here. So first and foremost, I want to tell you a little bit about what the Newman Civic Fellowship is. The Newman Civic Fellowship was created in honor of Frank Newman, who was the Campus Compact co-founder. Frank Newman strongly believed in student leaders having a voice and creating positive change. And so he utilized this fellowship to create a year-long experience that is open to our member institutions. Our member institutions have the opportunity to nominate student leaders who are outstanding in their civic engagement and want to see that be pursued not just in their student lives, but throughout their careers and their community engagement. And so we provide them with a fellowship that consists of things like an annual convening that brings our students together, allows them connect about these things that they want to be involved in civically, monthly trainings about civic engagement, professional development, and networking opportunities. We also foster mentorship programs amongst them. Things dealing with funding and professional development and post-grad opportunities for them. We really try to make a fellowship experience that allows them to, one, come together, share their ideas, thoughts, and experience, but learn and grow and develop as leaders of today and understand that they can make a difference in this world. The fellowship really recognizes and supports community committed students. So these students come in all shapes and sizes. They're very involved in their campus lives and in their community lives. And they have a true passion for creating change. And so when these students are recognized, our member institutions have the opportunity to nominate them to be a part of this fellowship and to grow in their leadership path and journey. Our Newmans come in all ages, shapes, and sizes, like I said. Currently, they range from 19 to 47 in age. And we had over 38 states representing Newmans last year. So we had Newmans in 38 different states last year. In order to be a Newman Civic Fellow, you do have to have 1 year of eligibility in order to remain. So you have to have 1 more year of school. But you can be an undergraduate, grad school, med school, anything like that, and be transferring from a 2 year and 4 year institution and still be eligible. We have over 150 Newmans each year, and currently we have over 2,000 alumni. So we also really encourage our fellows to utilize the network that they have in their cohort, but also utilize the network and resources that comes along with being a Newman Fellow. We kind of have a saying here that's kind of once a Newman, always a Newman, and I like to think that our fellows can appreciate that, reach back, reach across communities and really connect with one another, support one another as they move as civically engaged individuals. All right, so just to tell you a little bit more about the purpose of the mini grant. First purpose is community impact. And when it comes to community impact, this is really focused on our students being able to talk about where they see the gaps. Where are the things that are not being touched on that students are very focused on wanting to have an impact on? What are the communities that they want to reach out to? And that's why we provide the mini grant. So they have an opportunity to create that impact, create that change, understand that they don't have to wait for some magical moment or anything like that, that the moment is right now, and to help them see that they can pursue those things at this moment. We also focus in on student leadership. Uh, I think it's really important for students to have the opportunity to go through a mini grant process from start to finish, to have the opportunity to know what it means to like apply for a grant, receive a grant, and then also go forth and be able to take the funding that you've received and do strong and impactful work in those spaces, to understand what the process looks like, to work with community partners, to work with administrators, to run into challenges and understand that you have to maybe suddenly pivot or something like that. And then lastly, there's education and reflection. A large part of this component, and as you'll hear later on when they're sharing their stories, they'll talk about what they learned from this experience, the positives, and the things that they will take forward and how they can even grow and expand what they've learned, what they've been able to impact in these community impact projects. And so as they're sharing their education, as they're sharing their reflection, I think it even has the power to touch other individuals and see that if there are things that you want to be involved in, you can impact those things right now. So that's really kind of what the mini grant is about, if you think about it. And now just to give you a brief program overview. So our current Newman Civic Fellows are eligible to apply for these mini grant projects. They range from $500 to $1,500, or you can collaborate with another fellow if you'd like, and you can utilize $3,000 to do maybe a larger project together. They do need to be completed by June 30th, and as I know, it's not yet June 30th. So you will note that some of these projects may be like currently wrapping up or anything like that. They also are about enhancing current work or improving a new innovative idea. So some of these projects may be building upon other things, whether it's working with an office, whether it's seeing that there was something going on your campus and community and wanting to see it grow and thrive and be even larger and greater in that space. Or it was an organic idea that you've just been waiting for the opportunity to be able to implement, and maybe we're lacking the resources in that space. The students were also allowed to choose on the issue and method of change. So I would say with over 50 of our mini grant projects out there, there is a very diverse range of what the students are interested in, what they wanted to use this funding to tackle. Students can use it for things like research, art, direct service, fundraising, things like that. And the students do receive the grant writing and training prior to applying. So a thing that we try to do is provide them with the resources they need in order to apply for the grant. And then as you're also going through the grant process, you would work with me in order to get an understanding of things like project planning, budget management, evaluation and assessment, as well as storytelling. And then last and foremost, all students do complete a final report, a presentation, and a survey. Because this is only the second year of us doing our mini grant program, we do want to continuously get information and feedback from the students who are participating in this so we can continue to grow it and improve the program for our future student leaders who will participate as well. So just to give you a bit of a, I would say, landscape of the mini grant, we did award it to 50 of our fellows. We provided over $65,000 in direct funding. As I said before, 38 different states were represented in this space with 35 different issue areas, and this is our second annual grant cycle. We do plan to have a third annual grant cycle, and I'm really excited, especially because I've heard some of the students talking about, seeing their projects continue on past just this year that they worked on them by connecting with fellows who will be working with us next year. So I'm just really excited to see that grow as well. All right, so like I said before, I'm just giving you kind of this overview of what is the Newman Civic Fellowship and what is the mini grant program. But today is really about learning about the community impact projects, the experience of the students, of the fellows who have participated in this. And now they have the opportunity to kind of share what that experience was. And you also have the opportunity to ask questions about that experience. So I encourage you to utilize the chat feature because we will have an opportunity for questions at the end. But I want to go ahead and introduce our speakers. And then we can jump right into their presentations. So first we have Liv, who will be doing a presentation on Senior Program Assistant Center for Civic Engagement. Then we'll have Vincent, who will be doing a Westward Market cooking class. That's a bit of a tongue twister for me. Interesting. I'm very excited to learn more about this. And then we have Ajalon Mercer, who will be doing a Be More Encouraged. Sorry if I got a mispronunciation there, but I'm really excited to learn more about this project as well. Then we'll move on to Lauren, who will be doing a Youth Empowerment Symposium. And we have Summa Slater, who is doing an Activate the Advocate. Got a bit of a freeze there. There we go. And then we have Patrick Kelly, who will be doing Fords for Philly. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into our first presentation, and we're going to let Liv share her screen and share their experience.
Hello, everyone. As Morgan said, my name is Liv, and I was the Newman Fellow for Salem State University for the 2024-2025 academic year. My mini grant project is titled Train the Trainer Workshop Series, supporting students on the front lines of social justice. So to share a little bit about myself, I just graduated from SSU with my bachelor's in psychology, and I will be returning in the fall to pursue my master's in education and higher ed and student affairs to continue to do this work. So to better understand the impact of my project on my community, I wanted to share a little bit about Salem State. So we are located in Salem, Massachusetts, which is just north of Boston. And we are the first four-year public institution in Massachusetts to be named a Hispanic and minority serving institution. And for anyone who doesn't know, to receive that designation, 25% of your student body must identify as either Hispanic or of minority status. And we were largely able to accomplish this because due to our strategic location, we serve 11 of 28, or I'm sorry, 11 of 26 gateway cities in Massachusetts, not including ourselves. And gateway cities in Massachusetts are defined by how they anchor local economies, as well as the fact that they are major entry points for immigrants and their families. And so, as one may imagine, especially post-election, it was a really difficult time for the Salem community as well as the Salem State community. Both our local community and campus community were really impacted by what the implications of the change in administration would mean for them. And something important to note is that before my project became what it is now, the original idea was we were going to create a civics club at the local high school. We had been approached by some community members who had expressed that there were students there who were interested in learning more about civics. And I am a strong believer that civics education is very important and all students should be learning about it. And so when the mini grant was brought to my attention, it seemed like the perfect idea. However, after the election, we did some focus groups on students and they weren't really interested in engaging politically. And if anything, they really wanted more youth-centered spaces for their community. And then additionally, the local high school also has a strong immigrant status. A lot of children are from immigrant families, and so the school no longer really had the capacity to support us in this endeavor. And so after meeting with my mentor and some colleagues, we did some brainstorming and we came up with this idea to do a Train the Trainer workshop series. And we administered it in three parts, and we worked with a variety of collaborators. We listened to student needs on campus and found that our cultural and identity based groups, our student organizations, were really lost as to how to navigate the post-election landscape and continue to create social change. So we did an Advocacy 101 workshop for them where we explored personal strengths that you can bring to the table when advocating and how to mesh them with traditional advocacy tactics. We also used a framework created by Deepa Iyer, a social justice advocate, called the Social Change Ecosystem Map. There are 7 or 8 roles in the map that she emphasizes every person takes up during the advocacy process. They range from things like storyteller and builder to visionary and disruptor. And the idea was to show students how their personal skills and then traditional advocacy tactics translated into those roles. And it culminated in them using that knowledge to problem solve a scenario that we posed to them. which was very successful. Students walked away feeling like they had a better understanding of how to advocate for the issues that they cared about. We really tried to emphasize that it is small incremental change that leads to the bigger change we wish to see. We also collaborated with a local nonprofit called Neighbor to Neighbor. They are a grassroots organization that works on everything from voting and campaigning all the way to just local issues such as, school boards and town boards. And they administered a power mapping and power building workshop that really emphasized why power is important to advocacy, teaching us that we all have a vested interest in power, but also showing us how to use it to our advantage when advocating. It's not just enough to know who your allies are, but it's also important to know who are the people opposing you or who are the people that are remaining neutral that have the power to either work with you or work against you. And then lastly, we provided a resume building workshop where we helped students take the language of what they had learned in the previous workshops and add that to their resume to demonstrate their newfound expertise. And to further solidify that expertise, we provided certificates of completion. And to our campus organizations that participated, we provided $100 per organization for them to put on their own Train the Trainer workshop in the fall to continue the dissemination of this information. We also had additional opportunities, such as working with the Salem Youth Commission. They are a mayoral appointed board for the city of Salem that is comprised of the city's youth, and they really work on youth justice work. So we worked with them to provide an advocacy 101 workshop and help them figure out where they wanted to start in advocating for these youth centered spaces that so much of the city's youth are interested in. And we also had the opportunity to work with our Department of Social Work and also provide an advocacy 101 workshop. As we all know, social work has a very deep relationship with advocacy. And so we were able to give them a foundational understanding that they will hopefully carry with them in their practices. But on these next few slides, you will see some photos of our workshops. So up here is from our first two workshops. We have our Advocacy 101 and our Power Building and Power Mapping. We then move into our social work class, and you'll see some of the activities that we provide in these Advocacy 101 workshops. We try to come up with a group definition of advocacy to understand everybody's baseline understanding. We also do a gallery walk of just umbrella social issues to demonstrate that everybody has a vested interest in social issues across the board, but that they also are intersectional and interconnected, and that there is no one issue that is standing alone. We also did some work, like I said, with the Youth Commission. And so here is them doing some of that problem solving with the given scenarios and using the manipulatives that we designed. And so you'll see we have some cards that have the tactics on them with graphics that briefly describe them, as well as personal skills and strengths. And then they're explaining kind of why all of these tactics and skills are important, who their power players are, and the people that are going to help them get this done. And then, of course, delving into their role in the social eco change map. And then lastly, this all culminated for myself outside of this presentation in providing a display at our annual Civic Engagement Hall of Fame. Every year we put it on to highlight the civic leaders in the Salem state community. And I was able to provide this display showing the work that I had been doing throughout the year, as well as highlighting our amazing partnership with Campus Compact and why it's important to continue that. But that concludes my presentation, and thank you all so much for participating.
Liv, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm really loving this Train the Trainers, and I'll let you know on a side note, I'm thinking it might be a great thing to share with Newman cohorts going forward in the future, something they could potentially utilize. So you and I may be having a conversation about that. Before we move on with the um, regularly scheduled events, I would like to go ahead and share my screen just briefly. And just wanted to acknowledge that we will have one other person presenting today as well, Elijah, who will be talking about the growing pains in establishing a chronic pain training program for rural Mississippi health services. So I just wanted to add that in. I apologize for missing that earlier. And now we will be passing it back to our regularly scheduled events and moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Vincent, who will be sharing on the Westward Market cooking classes. And I actually will go ahead and share my screen again.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Vincent Caminneci. I'm a student. Well, actually, I've now graduated from Northampton Community College, and I will be transferring for the fall. And my project was I got mini grant to have cooking classes at the Westward Market in Easton, Pennsylvania. This was done in conjunction with Easton, the Greater Easton Development Partnership, especially to give a little shout out for market manager Emily Rowland, the vice manager, assistant manager Carrie Lasky, and also the manager, the person in charge of the Westward Community Initiative, Tanya Uris. So we can move on. So a little background. So as I said, I'm Vincent Caminneci, just graduated from Northampton Community College with an Associate of Arts in Political Science. I first started volunteering at the Easton Farmers Market and the Westward Market in 2023. And then, so before I actually started my time at my community college. So while there, I made some good connections, and I've been volunteering there since then. I'd say most weekends when I'm around. And also from there, at my college, I got a work study job under the direction of our now at that time assistant director, now the director of student life and leadership development, Nikolai Blihar, who is in the call today. And I was the NCC Votes Ambassador, so I was there promoting civic engagement on campus. Through there, he nominated me to be a Newman Civic Fellow, and through that, I got the mini grant. So basically a long time coming over, basically 2 years from connecting with the market and at my community college to making an impact in the community, showing that pretty much anyone can do it if you just find people to get it done. So this was done, as I said, in conjunction with the Greater Easton Development Partnership. So the main factions of that I worked with were the Easton Farmers Market, the Easton Public Market, and the Westward Community Initiative. Now, Easton which is the flag, as you see there, is the flag of the city of Easton, where I live, is separated into multiple parts, but the main parts that are important are downtown and Westward, which Westward is a food desert, so there's no grocery store. Hopefully that's supposed to change, but right now, according to a statistic I could find from 2019, about 60% of the people there rent, and about 25% live below the poverty line. About 25% of the population is Hispanic, and I believe about 10 to 12% do not speak English at home, or do not speak like any English. So the use of Spanish is also very important in the Westward Market and in the community. But the Westward Market's existence is primarily to make sure that there's community engagement, fresh fruits and vegetables, and healthy living in an area that is where it's more difficult to get that. The cooking classes that we've had, so far we've had 2 out of 4, have used the most fresh, locally grown and made ingredients possible. So we've talked with our vendors that are in the area and that go to the market, and we've been able to get ingredients through them. Next slide. So the cooking classes, so far they've been very successful. And as I said, there's 2 more. So there I have cooking classes. For preparation, we had to find some chefs. So we were looking at whether we should have like 1 chef or multiple chefs. Due to, searching, we found 2 people. One is Sharice Stevenson. She's done her portion of the classes. She did the first 2. Really great person, and you can see her there in both of the pictures. And her classes were a farmers market salad and a loaded French toast. That was both really good. And I gave some examples of recipes to use, but mainly I left the chefs and they mostly decided what they wanted on their own, which is great because they're the chefs, they know what they're talking about. So we planned the recipes, we set the date and time because it's at the Westward Market, had to be Wednesdays, so it was more just talking about what time because the market runs from 3 to 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. And so we thought about it and they have them at 5 to 6. Maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, depending on what's happening in the class, how long they last. And then we also had marketing, as you can see there. There's some marketing. Gave a shout out to Campus Compact, and basically, yeah, so far it's been pretty good. We've had we've been doing pretty good with enrollment in our classes, and we're more than halfway there for registration for the class tomorrow. And then we also get a lot of people that are just passing by at the market to join in. So we're doing pretty good. We've gotten people mostly people in Westward, but there are sometimes people that come in that are interested. But so far, so we got 2 local chefs. Another person we have that's going to have their first class tomorrow is Amanda Pietrobono, who's part of the Kellen Foundation, which sells fresh fruits and vegetables at the Westward Market. So we've done pretty good so far, and as you can see, we also have like consent forms and everything to make sure everything's good, since people are handling like knives, and we have a form, as you see, of someone who is younger that to make sure that everything's all right, especially with their parent. So next slide. And I gotta say, so far this has been really good. The impact, I think, has been really good. I had the feeling, and I think I shared this because so far, both of the days that we've done this class, everyone that's been at the market, especially, Emily and Carrie and Tanya, everyone I've been working with at the farmers market have all kind of I feel like we've all kind of had the feeling of like, this is the market at its best because as I've said before, this is a food desert. This is a poorer part of town. And so it can be a little harder to find investment, and especially before last month when it was really rainy around here. But I think that these classes, at least so far, have kind of filled a void that could be a little harder to find in the market sometimes. And I think that that's really good because it engages people. And I've noticed that people are now more willing to talk to each other, more willing to interact. They're very interested by these classes. Like it's a little thing, but just the fact that it's happening gets people's interest. And so we've had more just general positive vibe. And something that I've talked about with the market manager is that these classes might be successful enough to actually inspire the Greater Easton Development Project, GEDP, to actually keep these classes going in coming years. Obviously, to what degree or how often, I don't know, but still, it looks like the impact is big enough that these could actually continue going for beyond the mini grant. And as we've had, like in terms of wellness and community engagement, people are learning healthy recipes. People are meeting each other. I mean, there's people at the market who probably just usually pass through that I'm now meeting, getting to know their names, talking to, and they're knowing each other. And it's a really beautiful thing because we're seeing community form, and from something that is, it could be a little challenging to plan everything, but it's kind of showing that just knowing a few people and having a general idea together, you're getting stuff done, you're making community, and you're tying people more to the land and into each other. And that's really a great thing. So I think that this has been good for the Westward Market, it's good for the West Ward, and this is good for the city of Easton and for the community as a whole, because it's showing that we can rely on each other and we can learn from each other. And I think that's everything I have to say. But yeah, if you have any questions by the end of the presentation, for the end of the presentation of the webinar, ask away.
Thank you, Vincent, for sharing about that presentation. I think it's really beautiful how you shared just about the community coming together, and it sounds amazing that this is something that can potentially, continue on for years to come. I hope that is something that just continues to grow, and maybe people even build upon that. And just want to give a friendly reminder to folks that if you all have any questions about any of the projects or anything, don't hesitate to use the Q&A function. We'll definitely have some time to do that conversation later. But thank you for sharing, Vincent. And now we can move on to our next speaker, who will be Ajalon, who will be talking about be more encouraged. So I'll go ahead and yield the time to her to share about her experience.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Ajalon Mercer. I am Towson University's Newman Civic Fellow, and my project is called Be More Encouraged. So just a little bit about myself. I just graduated. I studied at Towson University and received my master's in athletic training. I was our athletic training club president this year. I officiate volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse. I'm also a high school girls mentor from ages 14 to 18. I'm a former high school teacher who taught anatomy and physiology as well as forensics. And I am a camp counselor, a former camp counselor and camp director. Okay, getting into exactly what my project is. In order to do that, I just wanted to give you an overview of exactly what athletic training is, especially since we are a new recognized health profession. So what exactly is athletic training? Athletic training focuses on preventing and diagnosing and treated related injuries relating to physical activity. Ultimately, our job is injury prevention and educating athletes on the proper techniques and conditions in order to reduce injury. Emergency care, we're normally the first ones there to provide immediate treatment with acute injuries and medical emergencies. Rehabilitation, diagnosing and recovery programs to help our athletes regain strength and mobility. Performance enhancing. My job is to assist athletes in improving their physical capabilities through training, not only on the field, as well as health and wellness promotion, encouraging overall well-being, including like nutrition and mental health. And we also collaborate with other people like workers such as coaches, physicians, and other healthcare professionals to optimize the athlete's care. Why are athletic trainers so important? Athletic trainers play a crucial role when it involves in sports and activities. Again, my job is injury prevention. They ultimately help athletes avoid injuries through proper training and conditioning, as well as educating the coaches on what they should do and shouldn't do in practice to prevent things such as ACL tears. Immediate care. We all know about the Jamal Hamlin situation where he had cardiac arrest on the field. That's exactly what my job does. I am the one who responds to emergency situations in crucial moments and makes those game time decisions. Rehabilitation and recovery. Ultimately, it's my job to design programs to help my athletes regain strength and return to play safely. My job is also to performance optimization, which means training and improving exercise performance through specialty exercises and techniques to also help them perform on and off the field. Again, health and wellness support, again, mental health and nutrition. A lot of times we forget that especially our D1 athletes or even high school athletes, no matter what they're going through, they're struggling through certain things, and it's my job to help care about their overall well-being. And consistency in care. A lot of times people just see their doctors like however often they need to go in, whereas our athletes come in and they see us every day. It is my job to check up on them, make sure that they are okay, and continue getting them back to where they need to be in order to get back out onto the field. Okay, the purpose and goals. My initiative, it really focused on schools that were passed over for funding and needed support. Many Baltimore areas schools lack funding for essential athletic training equipment. And students just deserve equal opportunities, regardless of where they're born or where they attend school. So most of these schools were served in predominantly minority populations, making equity accessible is a crucial portion of this. So my job was to provide resources willing to level the playing field and ensure that all athletes can compete safely. So the overall goal of this was to provide essential athletic training supplies and equipment to underserved schools in the Baltimore area. The purpose of this. Community impact. High school is such an important age and crucial shape, and it's a crucial part of serving and creating people's character and their culture. Holistic development. Sports and extracurricular activities play a crucial role in developing students and characters and their personalities. Also, just identifying schools in need in Baltimore. Supervisors of athletic training in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, they identify in different regions and they require just the basic need and supplies. Supporting injured athletes, because you'd be surprised at the little tiny things that would take an athlete a long way that these schools were lacking. Resource disparity. At the end of the day, someone is going to get the short end of the stick just because it is the public school system. Some schools just lack the essential supplies and equipment for their athletic training program. And just leveling the playing field. One of my biggest things is I believe that all kids deserve the right to compete at the highest level if they want to be there. So my job with this was just help and supply resources to ensure students in their underserved districts feel valued and included. My timeline of this. This took a lot because I had to sit down and talk with my mentor first. And then it took me meeting with the heads of the Baltimore City and Baltimore County athletic training program. It's two different people, as well as seeing what their schools, what they needed and what they were in need for at that time. Again, applied for the grant, found out midway through that I needed to find a different organization if I got the grant money to go through that. Again, winning the grant money, and then again, scrambling to try and find a nonprofit organization that would work with me because finding out that my school, going through them, that funding would take almost like a year to get the money out that we put in. And we were on a timeline. So just finding the communications and going back and forth with at least 3 to 4 different nonprofit organizations to find someone that would ultimately help me accomplish the mission that I wanted to do. Finally, finding a nonprofit organization. I then started the communication process and sent out with the organization, which is called BASH, which I will let you guys know what they're about in a minute. Frequent check-ins, ordering equipment, and seeing the different things with prices because at sometimes prices were surging depending on where we were, and then prices were dropping. So just finding the right time to order the equipment so every school could ultimately get what they need, equipment arrival, and then equipment distribution. Okay, as you can see on the screen, I have over 6 different schools that I helped. We potentially picked 3 in Baltimore City and 3 in Baltimore County that needed the most help, overall affecting over 2,000 students. I worked with Frederick Douglass High School, Carver Tech High School, Franklin High School, Lock Raven High School, Chesapeake High School, and Pikesville High School. Again, most of these are minority high schools that really could not control any of the funding that they were receiving, and again, just needed really basic minimum things. So just some of the challenges that I faced going through this. Everyone has their own job as well as me going through school during this portion of time, and just finding scheduling and coordinating times that align with everyone's availability. It just could be tough. It was very hard just to find a time where we all could meet and just see what needed to go through. And then a communication barrier. Getting 6 schools to respond it just required a lot, and setting clear deadlines using multiple forms of communication, whether that be email, phone, in person, or literally showing up at their school and just seeing what they need. And time management, balancing everything this semester. During the semester, I was not only in school, but I was required to complete over 405 clinical hours, which is me in a school basically for 8 hours out of the day, as well as trying to organize this with everyone else's work schedules. Okay, talking about the organization that ultimately ended up taking on my project. This is called the Baltimore Area Sports Health Initiative. They were founded in 2020. And ultimately, their job is to advance the healthcare to provide for the Baltimore area. They're one of the first organizations of its kind, and they're helping the way to lead and grow an efficiency for accessible and sports health through education, advocacy, and interdisciplinary collaboration. Their mission is to advance healthcare provided for athletes in the Baltimore area and beyond. And the vision is to be able to help ultimately lead and educate and advocacy of sports-related health. My personal growth through this. It definitely helped me improve my communication skills engaging with different types of people and just enhancing my ability to express the ideas clearly and listen actively while we're all in this whole process of trying to get things accomplished. Enhanced in teamwork and collaboration, learning to work with different personalities and foster adaptability and cooperation. Leadership development, because ultimately this was my job. It was my job to make sure that everything was in play and that we got the ball rolling to ultimately get to where we wanted to be. And just managing our group dynamic. Problem solving and critical thinking, because like I said, I ran into multiple organizations that were like, it's going to take way too much time to get the money to ultimately do what I need to do. But just trying to think on my feet and helping ultimately my mentor helping me figure out what was going on to help me get to the right place and increased confidence in myself, which is very crucial in my field. It helped me to contribute to successful and ultimately boost my own self-esteem and what I'm doing and know what I'm doing. And another thing is just networking and relationship building. Not only is the athletic training community kind of small, but um, it just was able to help and see the different things of something that I didn't know while I was going through this project until almost the very end was 4 out of the 6 schools that we ended up helping. They were also alums of my school. So just seeing things go full circle, some of them were the first master's program to go through. Some of them came from 20 years before it even became a master's program. So just seeing things come full circle and full connection of like how tight knit and how things can go if you actually just come together and work together to get things accomplished. What basically every school got. All 6 schools got everything that they requested. Lock Raven High School got their TheraBands, their cuff weights, and their cell phone pads. Chesapeake High School got TheraBands, hand putty, hand rollers, and again, all tiny things if they had in the budget to better rehabilitate their athletes to get to where they need to be. Pikesville High School got cuff weights, a TENS unit. Benjamin Franklin got a small dumbbells with a rack. Again, tiny things. Frederick Douglass got TheraBands, hand putty, and finger webs, and Carver got a slant board. And something with working through this project is me and my mentor have been talking of a way just to get off a program for Baltimore and the athletic training community, because a lot of times there are schools that have way too much supplies and can give to others, and some schools that just have nothing at all. So creating a exchange program online is kind of like my next goal, to see with the schools who have too much, who are willing to give some of their stuff away to the schools that have nothing. And this would be like a free way for people to exchange stuff, and so things don't go to waste. These are just comments from people who, some of the athletic trainers that were involved in this, and they just wanted to take the time to thank everyone who had a part of this, and how everything was put together, and how it was amazing just to see students achieve such accomplishment, showing how great the athletic training program truly is. Their gifts that they were given have helped them so much in keeping their athletes healthy and educating them about their injuries. And they ultimately ended up sending some pictures of them and their athletes using the stuff, but they were just super thankful for the time and the energy and the generosity that went into supporting the community and overall our public secondary health high school education. These are just a couple things from the banquet where everything was kind of put together, and just almost all the athletic trainers that were involved in this, and some of the heads who were involved in Baltimore County and Baltimore City as well. This is just a picture of some of the supplies and just some of the students with their supplies, and just figuring out, basically just being thankful for everything that they have achieved. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for helping me with this and helping this come into full fruition. It started out as just an idea, and just to see it able to come to full circle has been extremely rewarding. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you for sharing your story and your experience. I think you should be very proud of the work that you've accomplished here, and the community that you've worked with and impacted. And I just want to say, like, just bravo on all the pivots that you needed to make. You we're really determined to make your project work to have an impact in the community. And I just think that's beautiful. So we can go ahead and pass it on to our next student speaker to share their experience. That will be Lauren, and Lauren will be sharing about the Youth Empowerment Symposium.
Hi, so as Lauren introduced, I'm Lauren, and I hosted the Youth Empowerment Symposium this past spring. So as a quick overview of a bit about me, so I'm at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I was a 2024-2025 Vincent Fellow. I'm currently a rising senior and an English and political science major. I'm also a combined degree student pursuing a Master of Public Administration with graduate certificate in nonprofit management. I work as the SmartTC student site leader at HTC through the W. Nashville Center for Civic Engagement and Public Service. And I'm also research assistant and writer with the Unit Internationale de Avocats, who focus on protecting global human rights, DEI, and child labor prevention. I'm also a school shooting survivor. So a bunch of these things are really important to how I got to the Youth Empowerment Symposium idea. So just kind of an overview and kind of how this idea came to fruition. So essentially, a lot of these things were impacted very heavily after the election and with the current administration. So on the policy side, I was working with immigrant communities, queer communities, working with the global community as far as international human rights, but also seeing how DEI was affected, seeing how youth were impacted, thinking about H6DC is a children's literacy nonprofit that's dedicated to just protecting and supporting children in the area, and just seeing how they are being impacted, especially with a very large population of queer students, immigrant students, and students of color, as well as students who are children of government employees that are having job insecurity and job freezing. So, and this was a lot just to be kind of taking in as the administration changed. And then we had started actually working with students directly. So I work direct service with H6DC students, which is on the screen right now. And they had questions, and they had a lot of really good questions about why this is happening and why things were impacting them and why adults weren't doing more and how they could do more. And a lot of frustration about being a kid and not being able to do as much as they wanted to do to make it better. So that was something that I saw, but also watching how H26 was able to support them and make sure they had a voice and they could do something for it. So our program works to essentially help kids write creative writing stories with their own emotions, their own expression, and then we publish into books. So these kids were given a platform. And as we were writing these stories for them during spring semester, we were watching them express their thoughts this way. So much of it was just finding their power and their voice within that. So watching just the work the empowerment was doing was such just an inspiring thing for me. And then also with my own background, so I am also a product of youth empowerment. So I went through a school shooting when I was 14, back in 2018. And I, in aftermath, just had a lot of anger and frustration. And I felt a lot of things kids are feeling now as far as wanting to know what was happening and what I could do to make a difference. And the youth empowerment organizations that got to me in that time and set me on the right track to find my voice and find a platform and advocate and be an activist and just get to where I am today. I wouldn't be here in college, here doing this program, being able to do this work without those programs. And I think that it was a full circle moment for me, but also just understanding how essential youth empowerment is for just continued growth and continued finding power now, but also finding progress later, and the growth that comes with that. And then the realization that they're under fire right now, and there's a lot of programs that are struggling to find funding and struggling to find support just in the current political landscape and cultural landscape. So I started thinking and decided that we need to make an event to draw attention to these programs and also make sure that they were getting the celebration and platform they were needing. So project objectives was to emphasize the need for youth contribution and protection society, educate about proven methods of youth empowerment and why they're so necessary, as well as celebrate young leaders and compensate the organizations and empower them. So the idea was to get different organizations in the DC area together into one room, representatives, whether that be staff representatives or student volunteers or anyone that was close to the work that they were doing, to come in and talk about how they're doing it, the stories of success they found, areas of need that they needed more support, more help, action areas. Just, I know that so many of them had so much to say. I know I had so much to say, and the people I was working with had just so much to share. So thinking about making sure they had the area to talk about it and an audience to talk to about how to make it into an action plan and how to connect and network and make the change that we're needing to see. So that was kind of the original concept. So then methodology, we started with 5 organizations. So I started just narrowing down the choices to our organizations within Smart DC and Engage DC programs, which are co-curricular programs that match F3US students and student volunteers from GW with community organizations in DC. So that one, all of the programs underneath Smart and Engage had an existing relationship and connection with GW. So we decided to choose within those, just to make sure to kind of build on those relationships that already existed. We decided on nonprofits dedicated to supporting youth in a variety of ways. So different target populations, different age groups, different approaches, whether that be academic approaches, providing tutoring support, or providing a third space to go to after school, or providing art support, and things that different areas and methods of connection, essentially, to show the full broad spectrum. So then from choosing organizations, we decided on H26DC, Latin American Youth Center, and Brass Foundation, like Peace Masterpieces and Little Friends for Peace. So we secured one panelist, at least one panelist from each organization, and had a logos down there. And then we decided to do a pamphlet. So this is a program. I actually have one right here in front of me. So this was one of the bigger parts of our budget, was making sure that we had this. So this was actually how we got the youth voices included. So we had representatives and the staff voices on the panel. It was a little more difficult to get the kids themselves being able to be representative and have their voices be heard. So we had this an idea to make sure they had a way to have themselves be heard in the audience as well. So these have quotes from our students, have quotes from our volunteers. So it's essentially our way of crediting them. So I've got a couple favorites from here too. So one of the quotes was, "My program makes me feel proud of myself and happy," from a student age 10. "Youth empowerment is important to me because it helps me build confidence," age 16. And one of my favorites, "Kids can make power too, not just grown-ups," age 6. So this pamphlet is just full of that. And it was sort of a tangible takeaway from the event itself, so the audience members could have something to take away from them and come back to and just kind of see the impact as well as hear about it in that way. And then here was the actual symposium. So we hosted 6 panelists from 5 organizations, and another big part of our grant was providing each of them $100 compensation for their time and effort. So especially with the current situation that a lot of nonprofits are under, we didn't want to have them to come in and donate their time and money and effort without being compensated. So this was able to compensate them for their time, thank them for their efforts, and make sure they felt appreciated and celebrated in the way that we were aiming to. We presented to the audience of 30 students, staff, and public servants. We provided the printed full color program, and it was followed by a brief reception to encourage networking, brainstorming, and support between audience members. So the actual discussion was absolutely spectacular. So we had just such an amazing conversation about the past, present, and future youth empowerment and how to continue supporting youth cross country. And there's more about that slide too. So I was able to connect numerous volunteers to our featured organizations. So the audience members were able to kind of find that inspiration and find that sense of action and how to get involved. So many people that I was talking to that's process wanted to do something and wanted to help kids in this way and make sure that they had their voice and had the area of support and encouragement they needed to grow and to succeed, but just didn't really know where to start. So this symposium essentially introduced them to 5 different incredible organizations that can show them exactly where to start and exactly how to help. So that was one of the main really wonderful takeaways there. Provided a platform and space to speakers to discuss what's most important to them about this work and how to protect it. So that was just really special to hear about what each person was really passionate about. So we had questions that allowed them to reflect upon what their most essential nature of this work was about, and stories they could tell that just showed successes, and the stories they could tell that struggles, and just the things that they've encountered, and being able to talk about the things that really just made them tick, but also the stuff that they felt needed to share. So that was amazing, just to give these incredible public servants an opportunity to share their experiences and their wisdom. We also identified several action areas and areas in need of support within the youth empowerment space, particularly protecting immigrant youth, queer youth, youth of color. So that was a just consistent theme throughout the symposium as far as figuring out what areas we need to focus on and what students could do, and all the audience members giving them areas to start pursuing and things to really focus on in the future that we needed to continue supporting and protecting. And also provide the platform for each organization's youth share their voices. So that was our program, which was, again, just a really fantastic way to make sure the youth themselves felt like they were able to share their thoughts on it. And then actually now we're applying to present symposium content at civic engagement and public service conferences across the DMV. So that's thanks to our incredible program manager, Lindsay Chudzik at Smart and Engage DC. So she has started coordinating with us to bring the conference and our symposium to other conferences as far as finding opportunities to apply and be able to continue sharing this content with people beyond GW, beyond our campus. So we actually had full return for all the students that were involved, and we found other students step in for staff representatives who are unable to come. So that's been just a really fantastic next step as far as watching where this can go from here and continue just showing the impact and sharing the just incredible essential nature of this work that we're doing. So, and that was just about it. So thank you so much for being here and for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lauren. I really appreciate the work that you've put into this project, and it seems like you've really encouraged a lot of young voices to really step up and see what kind of leaders that they can be, and live in their own life in truth. And I love that. I love that for you. I love that for them, and I hope it continues to grow. I think we can go ahead and move on to our next Newman Civic Fellow who will be presenting. Summa will be talking about Activate the Advocate. So we'll go ahead and allow her to share her screen.
All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. So I'm going to be covering my mini grant project, Activate the Advocate. So a little bit about me. I am Summa Slater, Bridgewater State University's 2024-2025 Newman Civic Fellow, located in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. I recently just graduated, but I was a psychology major with a double minor in childhood studies and social justice studies. During my time as an undergrad, I also worked at the Martin Richard Institute for Social Justice here on campus, and they served as my community partner, and my mentor also worked at the Institute as well. So here are just some of my overall goals when creating this project. So I wanted to create new opportunities on campus for students to use their voice, express their passions, and advocate for issues that are important to them. I also wanted to cultivate new skills within BSU students so they can confidently engage in legislative advocacy through the proper use of storytelling. I also just wanted to enhance civic engagement within the BSU community by empowering other students to get civically involved. So Activate the Advocate was a two-part series that consisted of a workshop where students could come and build advocacy skills and knowledge. So during this workshop, they identified social justice issues that they were passionate about, researched who their legislators were, and then also engage in effective storytelling. Following the workshop, they could then come and do a visit to the Massachusetts State House where they can advocate for issues that they're passionate about with their legislators. And then this is the flyer that I used to promote the program, which I used across campus. So this is overall how the program came to fruition. So I first was introduced to advocacy during an alternative break trip in the spring of 2023. This served as a catalyst and kind of planted a seed of how accessible and easy meeting with your legislators are and expressing issues that you're passionate about to me. So when I became a Newman Civic Fellow, I expressed to my mentors how I wanted to use my platform to create accessible opportunities for BSU students to advocate for issues that are important to them, just like I did back in the spring of 2023. So the Activate the Advocate project, I hosted two different workshops, like I said. The first was on February 27th. I had another one on March 24th. And then I held the visit to the State House located in Boston on April 11th. So here are some of the challenges and lessons learned from this project. So a couple of the challenges that I faced was figuring out what content I wanted to include within the advocacy workshops. So these workshops were only 2 hours long, and I wanted to specifically focus in on legislative advocacy, but there's a lot to uncover and pack there. So I wanted to be able to give participants the most useful and efficient information. Also, I would say scheduling legislative meetings was also a challenge for me as well, because we attended the State House on a Friday and most legislators are out within their districts and communities and not physically present within the State House. So it was kind of hard scheduling those meetings. I also had challenges regarding student turnout. So for my first Activate the Advocate workshop, we kind of underestimated how many students were going to attend that workshop. And I had to bring in some new chairs, like move some things around. So kind of like a highlight there of like having too many participants come. So here are some of the lessons that I've learned from this project. I would say like the biggest lesson and takeaway for me is the power of community within university. So being able to collaborate with like-minded individuals who are passionate about issues that I'm also passionate about was such an incredible experience and something that I'm grateful I could have done during my senior year in like leaving BSU. I would also say that flexibility is key. Like learning within this, like you're gonna face different obstacles and challenges, but learning to overcome those and just like be quick on my feet. That was like one of my biggest lessons. And then also like realizing students really seek these different opportunities, such as Activate the Advocate, where they could express their concerns with their legislators and bring them to people in power who could create change. So here are some of the project outcomes, and most of this data was taken from the registration. So I had 37 different, I had 37 participants attend the Activate the Advocate workshops. And within those 37 participants, we had 20 different majors represented. On the registration link for participants to sign up for, I included 7 different social justice like topics like participants might be passionate about, and climate change ended up being the issue that participants were most interested in. I had 8 participants attend the State House visit. Pictured here are us at the State House. And then we held a reflection session after the State House visit. And then all of the participants actually said that they want to stay engaged within doing advocacy work. So really super exciting there. So next steps for this project, I am thrilled to announce that my project will live beyond me at BSU, as the Martin Richard Institute for Social Justice has incorporated this project into their institute. And the next Newman Civic Fellow will be taking this on and facilitating this workshop and project. So here are some like personal growth that I got within this project. I would say definitely enhancing civic engagement within the community and within myself. I definitely gained a stronger awareness of the importance of civic engagement, and I want to continue doing this work even beyond my time at BSU. I would say it also strengthened my facilitation skills. I was able to cultivate my own like unique style of facilitation and really like show up for other students and my peers. As someone who plans to develop their own nonprofit in the future, this was great experience of like program development and deepening my understanding of how the development process of programming is. And then I would also say community building. This was a big aspect of my project as I developed a cohort of individuals while expanding social and professional connections as well. And yeah, that's really it. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Special thanks to my mentor, MRISJ, and Campus Compact.
Thank you for sharing. I think this is an amazing project, and I'm really excited. It's going to be one of the ones that is going to be continuing on. I'm excited to see how it's going to grow and what direction it's going to take in. And once again, just something I think that future Newman Civic Fellows are going to have a great opportunity to like learn a lot from your experience and what you've shared. I would like to go ahead and take it to our next student speaker, Patrick, who will be sharing about Fords for Philly.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am going to talk today about Fords for Philly. As it says there, it's a little tagline. The idea is monthly service, lasting impacts. So I'm excited to get into it. So a little bit about me, and I guess about the name too, is I just graduated from Haverford College actually a month ago today. Um, and at Haverford, the nickname for students is Fords, hence Fords for Philly. And I joined our Office of Service and Community Collaboration, which we call the OSCC, my first year at Haverford. And fun fact, I actually applied for the OSCC while I was still technically in high school, because I knew right off the bat that the OSCC was something I wanted to be involved with. So I reached out very early on to get involved. And the OSCC, a little background, it used to be called Eighth Dimension. And essentially that name comes from the fact that at Haverford, community service used to be a part of the curriculum requirements. So in order to graduate, you needed a certain number of service hours. Over the years, that requirement has gone away. It's no longer a part of the Haverford curriculum. And with that, the name has changed to the Office of Service. And unfortunately, something I noticed during my time there is there really was a lack of community involvement, community engagement on campus. And we have this idea, you see it there and in this bullet point of the Haver bubble, where, students come to Haverford. It's a very, very small campus, only 1,400 students, and they don't tend to leave the campus, even though we're very close to a lot. We're on the main line, which is the highest density for colleges anywhere in the US. It's a very busy area. We're 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia. We're in the Ardmore area. There's a lot of community right around us that isn't engaged with as much as it could be. And as a result, we have this thing called the Haver bubble where students get so siloed into campus. So the purpose of the OSCC and the purpose of this project was really bursting the Haver bubble and getting kids connected to the community, not just Ardmore, but Philadelphia. So I want to talk a little bit about the process. Working with the OSCC already gave me a big advantage because I had access to this community on campus that was already dedicated to this kind of work. And I knew getting to the grant funds that whatever I did, I wanted to do in partnership with the OSCC. So as it says there, it was outreach in the sense that I walked down to my boss's office and said, I would really like to do this project. And her name's Emily, and she was very much on board. So we hit the ground running right away, developing a budget, figuring out, what kind of logistical constraints we might have, because what we hear often when it comes to service opportunities is students say, well, I wish there was some sort of, unfortunately, what they say is, I wish there was some sort of incentive. It's a lot to ask to leave on a weekend to go volunteer somewhere when I'd rather be shopping or frankly partying or whatever else you may do as a college student on a college campus on a Saturday. And, transportation is a big thing as well. How are we getting to these events? Are we providing food? All these budgetary considerations that prevent us at the office from doing service more frequently, we took into account. We said, how can we use the grant to address those concerns? And then the next part was just identifying partners to work with and community organizations that would be willing to host us for these service outings, monthly service outings where we take students off campus, burst that Haver bubble, and get them doing direct service in the community with these places. So one of them pictured there was Rosebridge, which I'll talk about later. And, throughout the process, there were challenges, such as the fact that, we're operating on a college campus. The academic calendar is a real concern. So we, had to consider the fact that, well, when we get back from spring break, we're only going to have 3 weeks, and then we have this other academic event or obligation that we have to consider. And again, still generating that student interest, that active participation is always a bit of a challenge. So figuring out how to incentivize students to sign up, to go to these places. Food is a very big incentive for college students. So figuring out, how we can work in or incorporate a lunch that still prioritizes community involvement, community engagement, while also making it, a more desirable opportunity for students. And outcomes, which I'll talk about in the later slide, but as mentioned here, we walked away developing stronger partnerships with a lot of organizations. We grew the awareness of the OSCC on campus, which was huge. A lot of students who came to these monthly service events had no idea what the OSCC was or what it did. And as a result of that, a lot of them walked away expressing more interest in getting involved and doing the work that the OSCC does. So these are just some numbers to that effect. We had 3 service events that the fund supported from February to April. The first was to, I'll go back very quickly to show you. It's this event right here, the Morris Animal Refuge. So we went and we volunteered at a local animal shelter. It's one of the oldest in the United States. The next event was was on campus rather. It was our Celebrate Spring event, which we have annually, which is we bring a bunch of community partners on campus, community organizations, and they table and they just let students know what they're up to, what they work on. The fund supported that event as well, which was a major attraction for students. And the last one was another animal related event, which I didn't set out to do. It just sort of happened organically at Rosebridge Animal Sanctuary. So in total, we ended up working with over 100 students, staff members, and community partners across these events. Currently, there are 4 open student staff positions in the OSCC that people who volunteered have inquired about, which is great. As I graduated, so did everybody else who was a student staff member in the OSCC. So all of those positions are vacant, and we have a lot of interest from students who worked with us over these events, which is really wonderful. And I have some photos as well, just from some of the events. So that first one is from Morris Animal Refuge. We did a couple crafts to make toys for the animals to improve enrichment. The next one is from Rosebridge Animal Sanctuary. We cleaned pens. We learned more about the sanctuary and again, sort of enrichment times with the farm animals, which was a super popular one. And then lastly, you'll see here, we're at a restaurant in this photo. It's a local restaurant, actually right up the street from Haverford. And this goes back to the idea that we wanted to make sure that the grant funds were supporting the community in every possible way. So this is a small business. It's called Bam Bam Kitchen. We took the volunteers after we were done and we had a big lunch at Bam Bam because we said to ourselves, it'd be great to go to an Applebee's or something, but we want to make sure that the funds that we're using are going back into the community. And this was an easy way to do it that still, attracted attention and interest from students. So next steps, again, the idea coming away from Fords for Philly was that we were getting more engagement and employment opportunities with the OSCC, and I think that has largely been a success. I have listed here the community-based work study program, student staff membership. These are just all opportunities to get involved with the OSCC, and they're growing, and the interest in these opportunities is growing as Fords for Philly wraps up. And the main goal that I had as well was solidifying this monthly service format where every month we're either going off campus or bringing partners on campus to, burst that Haver bubble and make service and community engagement a consistent thing on campus. And ingraining service in the Haverford curriculum is something I've discussed, not just with the OSCC, but with Haverford administration in general, bringing back that idea of an 8th dimension to the Haverford curriculum that's centered on service, centered on community involvement. So I'm hoping, moving forward, that is something that becomes more of a discussion on Haverford's campus. And lessons learned. Again, going back to the challenges of operating on a campus, generating interest, working around academic constraints, just learning to lead by listening, staying flexible, and really building intentional community. And I would say, again, my biggest takeaway is it is really these small, community-oriented opportunities and events that get the most involvement and the most interest. And it really is a snowball effect. You know, students from the first event pictured there, Morris Animal Refuge, went for a couple of hours, volunteered, got to hang out with some animals, and now many of them are applicants to work at the OSCC, not just for the next academic year, but for however many years they're on campus after that. And I think that's something I really want to continue doing, you know, as I think about post grad, is just maintaining that community focus. Actually, this summer I'm working at the Community Progress Council in my hometown, which is, you know, something I'm really excited about, and I think it'll allow me to continue the sort of work that I did, not just in Fords for Philly, but everything leading up to it, grant writing, you know, coming up with a budget, all of those aspects of meaningful community engagement are things I want to keep in mind as I move forward. So I ultimately am very happy with the experience with the project. I think it's something that'll continue to evolve, and I know, again, working with the OSCC, it's something they're definitely interested in keeping moving forward. So yeah, I'm really grateful to Newman and the fellowship for providing the funds and getting the project up and running.
Patrick, thank you so much for sharing about your experience. It sounds like you got a lot of engagement happening and getting people out of the haver bubble, if I said that right. We will pass it on to our last panelist to speak. That will be Elijah, who will be sharing about the growing pains and establishing a chronic pain training program for rural Mississippi Health Services. I'll pass it on to you, Elijah.
Thank you, thank you. Let me get set up here and we'll get started. So yeah, hi, my name is Elijah. I am a PhD student in clinical psychology over at the University of Mississippi. And this is my project just based around delivering chronic pain therapy to a very chronically underserved area. So Mississippi has high rates of chronic pain, some of the highest in the nation, and also the lowest availability of providers within the nation. Something called the brain drain, where people get their degrees in Mississippi and then they go somewhere else. So all that ability for psychologists, doctors, physical therapists, it's greatly reduced. And this is magnified within rural areas where someone just doesn't have a provider in their town. They don't have a lot of electric access, so they can't do any form of telehealth. So people who have injuries in a lot of rural living, say from a farm accident, personal injury, slips and falls, what have you, their choices are to maybe live with it, maybe some advice from the internet on how to deal with chronic pain, getting a short-term prescription, which always runs out because of prescription limits on things like opioids, turning to illicit sources of opioids, trying to get some kind of relief, or ending their life. And having chronic pain is a very high risk factor for someone dying by suicide. So my hope for this was to find very accessible ways for people to receive behavioral health therapy. Behavioral health is really just the things you do, trying to address different health conditions. What actions can you take alongside whatever a doctor prescribes, a medical doctor, to try to address that? A larger hope for all this was to really leave a generational impact on health treatment and treatment access within Mississippi. Specifically for chronic pain, someone who experiences chronic pain relating to a car accident some years ago. And I was able to access services because I lived in Oxford, Mississippi, a very well-to-do college town where if someone does get their degree in Mississippi, that's where they tend to stay. A lot of people don't have that kind of access. And so I wanted to at least disperse equity as much as possible. So the process of creating this chronic pain therapy program had 4 key steps, each of them unique and important in their own way. So because I was doing this through the University of Mississippi Psychology Department, the biggest part was getting the policy manual approved. As psychologists or graduate students training to be psychologists, there's state standards, legal standards, university standards, and then also psychology as a profession, the standards. So creating a policy manual meant that everyone who took up the program in generations after me had a very well set code of what they're doing and how to do it, just eliminating a lot of the guesswork. It was a key process for approval and took the longest, close to 2 months, and I think 8 rewrites because of having to navigate all those different standards and getting it all into one document. The way I got through that was actually by Occam's razor, which is one of my favorite words that I learned in high school. In essence, it just means less is more. So it went from close to a 60-page document to something like 10 or 15 pages because I realized with all these existing standards, a lot of the ethical principles were already set. So I could just say refer to clinic manual from the University of Mississippi, refer to principle A from the APA ethics code. That way people knew what to refer to. And the core content of the manual was really just what needed to be known specifically for this pain therapy program. So less was more. If I had known I could write less at the start of it and get this manual approved, absolutely would have done it. So after that was teaching graduate students chronic pain therapy. So this is a very specific type of therapy. Usually when people think of mental health, they think of anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, a lot of the personality disorders. They don't think of how therapy can really help with health conditions. And this is even students getting their PhD. They had no idea. So because it was the area I specialize in, I created a series of workshops with 8 graduate psychology students, teaching them how to deliver this therapy, conceptualize how maybe something like chronic pain can interact with depression. The more pain that you're in, the less you're able to do, bigger sap on your energy. Depression symptoms tend to foment. There's a lot of comorbidity between them. So there's a lot of active teaching strategies, getting them to learn what to do, how to do it, and then also practicing it with each other in role plays. And so from that, I trained 8 students. 6 of them committed to taking patients with chronic pain across Mississippi. There was a unique opportunity to do this because there was close to $2 billion in federal and state grants looking at delivering digital infrastructure to rural areas. So those areas that have never seen internet access, all of a sudden getting the towers in, fiber optic cables, whatever you want to call it, so that they could finally access the internet. And even if they're in a rural area with no providers, being able to see one through telehealth for the first time. Then it was connecting with doctor's offices for patient referrals. And so usually someone with chronic pain will go to see their doctor and they'll get an opioid prescription, something like that. It runs out and they're just given well wishes, told to do the best they can. This created the opportunity for doctors to refer people to us, especially for free therapy pro bono, because a lot of people, especially in one of the poorest states in the union, couldn't afford therapy. So knowing that there was a free option available that could complement providers' care is fantastic. It took some good flyer disbursements. A lot of my time at this point was spent on just creating the flyer, coordinating with artists, getting all the essential information in, getting it approved, visiting these offices in person, having lunch with the doctors, explaining what the program's about, and getting approval. So those are the 3 steps I've done so far. The last step that I'm on right now is I'm actually creating a poster for psychology conferences so we can disseminate what we learned, teach other programs how to do the same, because chronic pain is not only localized in Mississippi, it's something occurring everywhere. So outcomes from this policy. So I wish I could show you pictures from the workshop. I was advised not to because of the Family Educational Right to Privacy Act. These were graduate students who were taking the workshops as part of course credit. I never got explicit consent to photograph as part of it, and so I was advised just hold off on that. However, there have been commitments by 6 of the 8 graduate students to take on patients, at least 2 patients, and they have the knowledge now of how to actually teach other graduate students in chronic pain therapy. Policy manual, that big Moby Dick sized whale that took so much of my time, has been created. It's legally valid. It's something that they can all use going forward. The connections and the referral network with the doctor's offices have been created so that there is true wraparound health service in this area and in the larger Mississippi area. People have already signed up for the wait list to receive therapy and have been connected with providers. And right now I'm just making that poster to disseminate at conferences so that people know how to do their own thing in Mississippi, Florida, and beyond. So looking at next steps, I've already established multiple generations of people who will carry on this project. They have the manual and they have the advisor, the doctor who helped me establish a program. I'm staying on as an advisor as well for any policy connections, referral networks, just to make sure that this thing stays alive beyond me. And there's also talk of branching out to other conditions. Mississippi struggles heavily with diabetes. Again, it doesn't differentiate between any of these counties, it spreads out heavily. And so a large struggle with diabetes in Mississippi is that people can't often do the behavioral treatments alongside insulin. If someone can't establish a pattern of consistent health behaviors, that's often where amputation of toes, feet, legs, digits comes about because it's a life-saving measure. And at that point, it's often seen as the main thing someone can do. So the need for this to spread and grow towards diabetes treatment is very necessary and something I'm trying to support right now. My personal growth on this would just be, I've always had a desire to help, and I never knew how. But this capacity to contribute as a psychologist was something I struggled with as I grew into this career. So being able to do that and finding a specific target for it, something that, okay, I want to help, but how? Chronic pain, trying to move the metric on that, something so meaningful to me. I'm glad I've been able to find that focus, as well as establishing the value of pro bono, free work. The free work that therapists can do that makes such a difference for people who can't afford it. It means everything to me. So in closing, thank you to the Newman Foundation, Allstate, Dr. John Young, University of Mississippi, and everyone who's involved in this in helping establish this and create it. My lunch break is about over, so I don't know if I can stay for question time, but I also want to thank you for your attention today.
All right, thank you, Elijah, for sharing your presentation and taking time out of your day to share about this information. I want to thank everyone for staying with us a little bit longer. I apologize, we did run a little bit long, but I want to take the appropriate amount of time for your questions. So we will stay on the line and answer the questions that are in the chat. If you have any more, feel free to throw those in there. I'll go ahead and read these questions out so everyone can be informed on what they are. And as far as my fellows, please feel free to answer the questions that you feel are appropriate. So I want to express this anonymous person's just gratitude around what your project is. They said you did a wonderful job and they're very impressed by both the impact and adaptability and your presentation skills. Since a lot of you just graduated, they're curious to know what's next for you and what advice you would give to anyone younger than you who's interested in asking their school about becoming a Newman Civic Fellow. So I will open that up to you all.
I can start. So my next steps, I'm currently looking for a job right now. I found out I passed my boards, so now everything is kind of open in the air, and I am uh, looking. Currently, I have a few offers, just trying to see what school or what environment where I want to be would be best. And advice I would give to someone who's younger than me. I didn't even originally know what this was, nor did I really want to take on something extra, considering I had all of this going on. But I would just say be bold and take the steps, even though you accomplish so much that you didn't think was possible when you do this. I am like forever thankful that my teacher kind of like pushed this on me and was like, this is something you'd be good at, this is something you'll be great at, and I'm already recommending you for it, just so you know. And I am just super thankful for that opportunity because um, this just kind of showed me that like the sky is the limit and just be comfortable being uncomfortable and push yourself.
I love that. The sky is the limit. I definitely would encourage people to speak to their school if they're interested in that. Would anyone else like to kind of share?
To follow up Ajalon, I will be returning to Salem State in the fall to start a master's program for my MED in higher ed and student affairs. So hopefully one day I can go into doing civic engagement work in higher education. Um, my advice would be to believe in yourself and value what you have to bring to the table. because there is no one way to do advocacy, and especially what you'll learn through the fellowship is that there are people scattered across the country that share the same values as you, that have the same interests and ideas, or have new ideas that you never even thought of, and it just pushes you and shapes you to be a better advocate and a better person. And our network of support through the fellowship and just the Newman alumni is really so deep and so rich. And so there is not going to be a moment where you're alone in this and that you have a great support system.
Thank you, Liv. And my fellows know I will hold a moment of silence just to see if anyone else would like to answer. Okay, so thank you for sharing your responses there. And then I want to ask another question that's here in the chat. This is a really good one. So if there was one thing you could say to funders or other professionals or adults who are thinking about funding students on their campus in their community, what would you tell them? Why should we fund student projects or ideas directly?
I can start here for a minute. So I think as far as student projects go, we as students have different perspective on issues than people who are not students. And I think that we have kind of a unique perspective of what we see, what we experience, the people we work with, and just the way that we experience the world and we experience these issues. So I think that it's important to have a very wide network of people who are working to solve these issues because different perspectives and backgrounds are so important to finding different solutions, different approaches. But I think that the student perspective is just very unique and very powerful. So I feel that having the opportunity to have these projects and pursue these passions as students, and just especially at the stage of our lives that we have so much to share, we have so many ideas to pursue, and so many passions we want to pursue, that it's just a very special time to have someone believing in you and someone that wants to figure out what you can do. So I think it's just a very very important, very cool thing to be able to support and encourage.
Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. And I agree with everything you said there. And then I believe, Vincent, did you want to share something as well?
Yeah, I agree with Lauren 100%. I would also say that, I guess, on a more societal level, that I think it's really important to have investments in students and younger people, not only because you can get important ideas and concepts out of them, but also because they're going to, we're going to grow up. We're going to be in leadership in industries and in the businesses and in the economy and in government. And the thing is I think it's really important to kind of imbue hope and the recognition that you can get things done, because if you starve people of opportunities, then they're going to grow up and they're going to kind of live in a world where they don't really see a point to even try. So it's really good to have those opportunities around so people are like, can actually see the point in it. Like, I mean, I think through this mini grant, I can beforehand, I definitely have had phases of like pessimism and like, what's the point? I can try hard and it doesn't matter. But it's like when you actually get an opportunity, you actually get to see people, you get to talk to people, you get to make something. You say, oh, I can just like do this. Like, we're just making things. Like, you just make things. And I think that's a healthier mindset. That is, I mean, it's good for society, and I think it's good for the individual. I mean, it's definitely better to know that you've done something and made something than not.
Thank you so much for sharing, Vincent. I'll briefly open it up to see if maybe one more person would like to answer. No pressure, I'm just putting it out there.
I was just thinking about the theme of this year's convening, the idea that we're the ones that we're waiting for. And I think it just sort of echoes what Vincent and Lauren already said, this idea that these funds and these opportunities are really cultivating the next generation of leadership. And I think a lot of us had a clear picture of what we wanted to do, but it might not have been fully fleshed out. We might have, encountered a roadblock along the way, or, I can say in my case, my project ended up looking much different than I anticipated, but I still consider it a success. But it's that idea that I don't want to say these funds are for trial and error, because I do want to caution and say that, we're all very deliberate about the work that we're doing. And we took great care to apply and think about it very deliberately. But I think the point being that these funds and these opportunities are really giving us the opportunity to go out there, make an impact. It might yield 100 participants, it might yield 0 participants, but the idea being we're gaining experience in either scenario. We're figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And it's due to that generosity, to that person taking a chance on someone who's young and might not have the experience, but is gaining it from, the willingness of a donor to provide it. And I think that's really valuable.
Thank you, Patrick. So I do want to be conscious of the time. And I know we've gone a little bit over, but thank you so much, everyone, for coming here today and listening to the important stories that are being shared here by our Newman Civic Fellows about their experiences with the community impact projects. I want to thank the fellows for all the hard work that they've put in, not just to this presentation, but to the impacts that they've had on their communities, all the tireless meetings with me and things like that. I thank you for the work that you've put in here and everyone who supported you on these projects, the community partners, the administrators you worked with, friends and family and things like that. Just thanking them for the support that they did in here, because they're just as much as a help to making these things come to fruition. And thank you everyone for joining. Before we lose everyone, I would like to say, if you're interested in, having a Newman Civic Fellow, being able to have that fellow participate in the mini grant process, please email us, reach out to Campus Compact. If you are a member institution, please reach out and inquire about nominating a Newman Civic Fellow. And if you are maybe not a part of a member institution or a student, connect with your school, see if they're interested in that membership, so that you can look into becoming a Newman Civic Fellow, or just reach out if you're interested in membership. Just for purposes, you can reach me or my supervisor will here at these email addresses. But please, thank you for coming, and don't hesitate to reach out if this was something that maybe sparked your interest. All right, thank you, everyone.